A single cattle yard on the edge of the Sturt Stony Desert sparked an empire that would change the face of Australia's outback. In 1876, J.H. Howe began a story here that would face unimaginable flood and fortune, swelling to thousands of square miles and cattle. But the land was always waiting to reclaim its own. The question is, how did this remote corner become a legend, and what was lost along the way? In the late 1870s, a rough yard took shape on the edge of Yamakira Waterhole, its timber rails hammered into the stony ground by a man named J.H. Howe. The date is blurred in memory. Some say 1876, others 1878, but by 1881, Howe had driven 1,000 cattle across the desert from Aramac Station. The yard itself was nothing more than a cluster of pens beside a trickle of water, built to hold the first herd in a country that offered little shelter and even less certainty. No grand homestead, no fences stretching to the horizon, just a handful of stock, one determined stockman, and the endless sweep of the Channel Country. From this solitary beginning, the story of Clifton Hills would unfold, shaped by grit, luck, and the promise of the land itself. By the early 1890s, Clifton Hills sprawled across 4,000 square miles, with the Broad family at the helm and 14,000 cattle grazing the vast floodplains and stony runs. The scale was staggering for its time, but nature soon tested every inch of it. In 1904, manager H.C. True watched as floodwaters from the Diamantina and Georgina swept over 2,000 square miles of the property, swallowing yards and scattering herds. 2,000 cattle moved through waterlogged country, and the station's future hung on the mercy of rivers that could turn dust to ocean overnight. When the Broads sold Clifton Hills in 1912, the land had already proven it could offer bounty or disaster without warning. The need for more reliable water would soon become impossible to ignore, driving the next era of adaptation on this remote frontier. Reliable water changed everything on Clifton Hills. Before artesian bores, survival depended on the whim of rivers and scattered waterholes. Once drilling tapped the Great Artesian Basin, water began to flow year-round, transforming the station's fortunes. Along the Birdsville track, a string of bores pushed life into the dry heart of the property, feeding livestock through even the harshest seasons. Near Warburton Creek, a bore-fed wetland runs for hundreds of meters, a ribbon of green in a sea of stone and sand. The country itself divides into three parts: the floodplains that breathe with each river surge, the gibber plains where creeks carve through polished stone, and the rolling sandhills that edge the horizon. Each land type demanded its own approach, but dependable water tied them together. With bores in place, herds could graze farther and longer, setting the stage for new ways of working the land that would follow in the decades ahead. In 1960, a fleet of trucks rolled out from Clifton Hills, loaded with 53 bullocks bound for the Marie railhead. For the first time, the Birdsville track echoed with the sound of engines instead of hoofbeats and wagon wheels. Hector Brooks, whose family had steered the station through decades of drought and flood, placed a bold bet on mechanization. The journey was rough, rutted tracks and bull dust stretched for hundreds of kilometers, but the trucks made it through, delivering their cargo faster than any drover could. That single run ended the era of horse-drawn droving on Clifton Hills. What began as a gamble quickly became the new standard, and within a few short years, cattle trucking became the backbone of outback logistics. The Birdsville track, once a test of stamina for man and beast, now linked the station to distant markets with a speed and certainty that would have seemed impossible just a decade earlier. Clifton Hills now stretches across 17,000 square kilometers, making it one of the largest cattle stations in Australia. In late 2018, the property changed hands for the first time in 60 years. The new owners, led by Viv Oldfield, a pastoralist with deep ties to the Channel Country, brought Clifton Hills into a partnership that also includes Pandi Pandye and other major holdings. This vast expanse supports tens of thousands of cattle and covers landscapes from floodplains to sandhills. Its boundaries marked more by rivers and open sky than by fences. Today, its scale is measured not just in land, but in the ambition of those who run it. 18,000 cattle graze Clifton Hills today, with numbers swelling to over 21,000 in good seasons. The station's workforce is small. Just 16 residents manage the vast herds and maintain the infrastructure scattered across the floodplains and sandhills. Certified organic, Clifton Hills produces beef without synthetic chemicals or hormones, setting it apart in the modern market. The daily routine blends old skills with new technology, but the focus remains on the health of the land and the cattle it supports. Across 17,000 square kilometers, Clifton Hills still adapts to drought, flood, and change. Its future mirrors the outbacks, uncertain but fiercely enduring. The land always has the final word.